Hi guys, this video is going to be over how humans impact the environment in which we live. And as usual, for this to work, you're going to have to be quiet and you're going to have to follow along on your note sheet and fill out the things that are highlighted in either white or red, and maybe some of them in yellow. But I'll point to them with my laser to show you which ones you're writing down. So here we go. Okay, now we litter. Lots of people litter. Like, you're driving down the highway and you just finished drinking a can of Coke and you don't want to hold on to the can, so you toss it out the window or you toss a wrapper out the window. But what you have to remember is that every time you throw trash away, it goes straight into your environment. So by not putting it in the bin, you're just throwing it into a field or into a river where it can cause a lot of damage to, the people or the fish or whatever animals and plants live in that place. So your litter goes straight into the environment. Okay, even when you do throw things into your garbage, like the garbage at home, and your parents put it out on the curb and the garbage truck collects it, all of that garbage is going to go into a landfill. So look at the diagram for me. A landfill is pretty much like a huge pit that they've dug in the ground, and they put these plastic liners all on the side, and then they just pile garbage, and then they'll put some soil. And then they pile some more garbage, and they'll put more soil. And they'll just keep adding garbage and soil until it's all filled up. So when we throw things away, your trash is actually being thrown away into a landfill. Now, like I told you, they put these rubber liners, so this black line all around where my laser is. And what the rubber liners are supposed to do is it's supposed to keep all the trash and any liquid or anything like that inside of that hole that they've dug. But sometimes, especially if it's like a liquid or a poison that's easily absorbed into the soil, it can get through the rubber liner and go right into the soil around, so right where my laser is now. So it's no longer in this area, which is safe. It's now in this area, which isn't safe anymore. Because if you're looking at the picture, you can see that we have some water right in this region right here. This process where toxins go from the landfill into the soil around it is called leaching. And leaching just means the liquid's leaking into the soil. Excuse me, sorry, still sick. So it's important for us to not just throw our trash away properly, not just to litter, but also to try to do 3 important things. The first one is reduce. Try not to make as much trash as you normally would. If you're using disposable cups or plates, use them a couple of times before you throw them away. If you got a drink and you're going to get another drink in 30 minutes, don't throw that cup away. Use the same cup and get your drink. So that way you're not wasting 20 cups in one day. So reduce the amount of trash that you're using. The next one is to reuse common household items like bottles. So if your parents or if you got a water filter, like a Brita or a pure water filter or something, you can pour your water into a bottle, not like a Dasani bottle, but like a reusable bottle. So instead of buying bottled water all the time and wasting plastic, you just use your bottle over and over and over and over again. The third way is to recycle. For the things that you can't reuse, but they are plastic or paper or glass, then go ahead and recycle them. So those are the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. So let's talk about what some of these things are that can be recycled. So things like plastic, like your plastic bags. Things like glass containers or glass bottles. Things like paper, like the paper you write on, or even your newspaper. And wood, and even metals like aluminum foil can be recycled. And it just means that we're going to take it, wash it, clean it up, chop it up into pieces, and reuse it as something else. So that brings me to the topic of batteries. Now, we use batteries for everything, like your remote control. We have batteries in our cell phone. Our computers have batteries. Lots of things have batteries. And when you get the regular ones, like the Duracell ones, you use it, and then as soon as it runs out, you throw it away. But batteries have something called heavy metals in them, and these heavy metals are actually poisonous. So some examples of heavy metals that batteries have in them are things called cadmium, or elements called cadmium, and mercury, kind of like the stuff that used to be in the thermometer, and lead, like in lead pipes or lead paint, stuff like that. Now, these three things, all these heavy metals, can be really, really harmful to animals and humans especially. That's why we don't have like lead-based paints, or we don't have pipes that are made out of lead, because the water that's running through the pipes would pick up the lead and make us really, really sick. So instead of using batteries that you throw away every single time they run out, we can use rechargeable batteries instead, and they come in this little like charging case. So every time the battery runs down, you put them back in and you charge it for a couple of hours, and then you can use it again. Now eventually the battery won't charge for very long. Like after you've used it for like a couple of months or even sometimes a couple of years, the batteries won't be as strong and you can throw them out and get new ones, but it's better than throwing away batteries every single day. So rechargeable batteries help us to cut down on the amount of heavy metals in the environment, because you're using fewer batteries every single day or every single year. Okay, so another thing that we as humans do that can harm the environment is we use insecticides and pesticides for like our crops. So pesticides and insecticides kill pests and insects that would eat like the food that we grow, like corn and tomatoes and, you know, any kind of vegetable kind of food or fruit. Herbicides are used to kill plants, like weeds, which would like compete with the crops that we're trying to grow for food, for water and sunlight and stuff like that. So to get rid of the animal pests, we use pesticides and insecticides, and to get rid of the plant pests, we use herbicides. Well, these things are poisonous to plants and animals, which means that they can also be poisonous to humans. Now, they literally make us sick. They can make plants sick, animals sick, and humans sick. Pesticides, insecticides, and herbicides. Now here's why it's a problem. Remember I told you that in the landfill they put that liner, but sometimes liquids can get through the liner and get into our water supply? Well, that's why using these things are bad for the environment, because they can leak into our underground water, and that way they can get into lakes and rivers and streams and ponds and all of that whenever we spray them on our crops. Now, once they're in our water, they're going to travel really, really far. They're going to go all over the place, which means that they can make animals and plants sick all over the place, like a really far distance away from where they originally were. Okay, I'm sorry, the writing's kind of like hard to see on this one. But pretty much this slide is going to talk about why it's bad that there are these heavy metals and these poisons in our water. Now, all animals have fat tissues, and our fat tissues, like literally the stuff that makes us chunky, they can store poisons in them. So let's look at this food chain really quick. This is a food chain, or an example of a food chain that would be around water. So like these guys would live in water, the fish obviously will live in water, and these are birds that will live around water because they eat these fish. So the closer you are to the bottom of the food chain, the less fat you're going to have, so the less poisons you're going to store. So the poisons won't really affect you that much. The higher up on the food chain you go, the more food you're eating with poison, the more fat you have, so that means you're storing more and more poison. So the animals that will have the smallest amount of pesticides and poisons and stuff will be on the bottom, so like our producers and our herbivores, just because they're smaller. And the animals or the organisms that would have the most amount of poisons will be the ones at the top of the food chain, because they're eating more animals with poison in them, and they also have more fat in them. Okay, this whole process is called biomagnification. So biomagnification is when animals contain larger amounts of poisons or toxins as you go up the food chain. So a little bit of poison, little more poison, even more poison, lots of poison. The poison is increasing as we go up the food chain. Now, because these poisons easily get into the water, it means that it's really going to affect aquatic food chains and aquatic food webs. So the animals that are normally affected the most, the ones that will contain the highest level of toxins, will be the birds that are going to eat these fish that have large amounts of poison in them. So the birds will end up having more poison than everything else. They're the ones that are going to die. Okay, I'm going to show you this video at the end, so we're going to skip ahead. Now, on your worksheet, you should have this same food chain that I have on mine, and there's only one question that goes with it, and it says, which organism will have the greatest amount of chemical pollutants built in the body? So like I just told you, the poison increases as we go up the food chain. So right here, this is our poison increasing, So this shorebird is going to be the animal that has the most poisons in it. So go ahead and mark D on your note sheet. Okay. So here's another question that you might see. It shows you a graph and it shows you how much poisons each thing has. So if we went through and like we drew in the answers, our sediments would only have a little bit of poison, and then the prey would have a little bit more, and then the adult birds would have the most. So go ahead and draw that in on your worksheet, and then let's go through these questions. Now again, just like before, if you're on the top of the food chain, you're the one in trouble because you're the one that has the most poisons. So these shorebirds are going to be the ones with the most poisons in them because they are the top of the food chain. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, what does that have to do with us? Well, you have to remember that humans are also the top of most food chains, especially the ones that like think of all the things we eat. We're the top of our food chain. So if we're eating animals that have poisons in them, it means we're getting poisons inside of us, and that can make us sick or even kill us. Okay, so why do we care about the ecosystem so much? Why should we be careful about how we treat it? Well, every ecosystem is connected. Like they're all part of one big world. Like the ocean's connected to the land. All of it is connected. So if we mess up one ecosystem, or if we damage one ecosystem, we're going to damage a lot of them. And ultimately, we're going to damage our own ecosystem because we live in an ecosystem as well. So for that reason, it's really important that we are careful what kinds of chemicals we're getting into our environment. There are some chemicals that will still help us out, but they won't do a lot of damage to the environment. So those are the ones that we want to try to make sure that we're using. Okay, again, this slide is really kind of bad. But this one goes over what deforestation is. And deforestation is the removal of forests, just like the name suggests. So what is deforestation? It is the removal of forests. Every time we cut down a forest, we cut down the home of a whole bunch of animals and plants. And if they have no home, they have no place to live. So ultimately, we're killing parts of our ecosystem. Okay, now by doing this, it can lead to extinction. And extinction is what happens when an entire species of animal completely dies out. Like, it's completely gone. It will never come back. The very last one died, and there's none left. So that's what extinction is. Right? And here are some examples of animals that are extinct. Now, the sad thing is, it's us, it's humans that's responsible for most of the changes in our environments. So things like the woolly mammoth and the dodo bird and the Bali tiger have all been killed by humans. And it's for a couple of reasons. Some of them we hunt for food, like we hunt, not us specifically, but our ancestors hunted and ate the dodo bird. They hunted and ate the woolly mammoth. And sometimes we just kill things because we take away their habitat. We're trying to plant new farms for ourselves. We're trying to live in places where those animals also live. All right, here's another example of an animal. This is the black rhinoceros, and it's really close to being extinct. It's not extinct yet, but you only have a small amount of them still alive. So these animals are dying because of this really big horn that they have. Lots of people like to kill them and like cut their heads off or take their horns and use them as trophies. It's like saying, oh, look at this big rhino that I killed. And these guys are called illegal poachers. So an illegal poacher, or a poacher, period, is an illegal hunter, someone who is killing an animal without permission to kill an animal. And when the species is really close to extinction, like they only have 10 or 12 or maybe 100 individual animals left, it's considered an endangered species. So these guys are endangered species. All right, so that's it for the role of humans on the environment. I hope I gave you something to think about, and we will continue our lesson now.